Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Community Economic Development Application, a Capacity Building Application Workshop. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. My name is Melissa Latham. I'm the Director of Communications and Policy at CDFA. This morning, we're going to take the time to walk you through the various elements of the capacity building application. That's going to include a refresher overview of the tax credit program, what working with CDFA might look like from the applicant perspective. And then we're really going to dive in and walk you through each of the elements of the capacity building program application to ensure you're well suited to pursue an application in the coming weeks. We'll also discuss some data resources that we have available at CDFA that might support your work in an application, and then we'll talk through next steps and how to further engage with CDFA throughout the process. So we're going to get started and ask you to do some brief introductions in the chat. We'd love for you to share your name, the organization that you're here representing today, and then a few words about why you're interested in learning more about the capacity building program. We'll also let you know that we are recording today's presentation. We will share that recording along with the PowerPoint and relevant materials in a follow-up email. So please know that those resources will be coming your way. We will be taking questions throughout the presentation. So if you would, please drop those questions into the Q&A box. Again, we will be pausing throughout the presentation to answer your questions. So please add those to the Q&A box as they come up for you. So we're going to kick things off by welcoming the CDFA team and doing some brief introductions to those who you will be engaging with throughout the application process. And I'm going to pass it over to Betsy to start.
Morning. My name is Betsy McNamara, and I'm a consultant with Full Circle Consulting based in Concord. And I am contracted this year to work with CDFA and overseeing the tax credit program.
Good morning, everyone. So happy that you're here. I'm Molly Donovan, Director of Economic Development at CDFA, and I'm your contact for the capacity building program. I'll be sharing some of the slides later this morning.
Good morning. I'm Kim Pasoka, the Accounting Director for the CDFA. I'll be your contact for any questions regarding the financial documents that are required for your application.
Good morning. My name is Nate Olson. I support the CDFA with their data work as well as their grants management system, and I'm your point of contact for any data-related application questions. Additionally, if you run into any issues while using our systems, you might interact with me at some point.
Good morning. My name is Melanie Steenbeck. I am the current contact for registrations in our grants management system while Priscilla is out. When you register, you will likely get an email from me or from Priscilla upon her return.
Hi, my name is Kirsten Barton, and I am a project manager at CDFA, and I am the tax credit program manager. So I work with tax credit applicants and awardees projects from the application through the closeout of a tax credit award.
Okay, I am going to get us started this morning with an overview of the tax credit programs and what it's like to work with CDFA when you are making an application. So this is a delineation between the capacity building tax credit program and the tax credit program. In total, there are $5 million in tax credits awarded to CDFA from the state of New Hampshire each year. And each year, CDFA assigns $750,000 of that award to its capacity building tax credit program and $4.25 million to the tax credit program. And the overall difference is capacity building tax credits, what we're focusing on today, are focused on the organization, not bricks and mortar, but on organizations that need strengthening and growth in order to get to a place-based community economic development program. The tax credit program tends to focus on bricks and mortar place-based economic development projects, but that can include expanding programs or organizational capacity as a part of that place-based Economic Development Project. Both programs are focused on priority populations, and there are definitions of that in the app and program guide. The capacity building and tax credit programs have different applications and different guidelines. Both require organizations to contact businesses to donate, but in capacity building, CDFA does play a larger role in supporting the organization in that. And today we are talking about the capacity building program. We did the overview of the tax credit program application last week, and if you missed that, you will receive a link to that webinar recording in this webinar's follow-up email. Both are competitive programs. Each year, both programs receive about 2 times as many applicants as it can award. So some tax credit basics. A quick explanation of the tax credit program, and this applies to both parts of the program. Nonprofits are awarded an allocation of tax credits for a fundraising campaign. And instead of asking for cash contributions, as one does in a typical fundraising campaign, they ask for tax credits donations from businesses. The business pays the donation to CDFA. Once their donation is made and the business has received a tax credit letter confirming their donation, they receive that tax credit letter from CDFA confirming their donation. They can then use that tax credit donation when they file their taxes. For every dollar the business contributes to your project, they will get back 75 cents in state business tax relief. A business can claim the tax credit on the business profits tax, the business enterprise tax, or the insurance premium tax, and they may carry forward the credit for up to 5 years. And parts of their contribution may also be eligible as a state and federal charitable foundation. But we always have an asterisk on that line, which is that donors should always check with their tax advisors about the potential for additional tax benefits. The tax credit program, the bottom line here is that the tax credit program helps a participating company significantly increase their community impact by leveraging their tax dollars to invest in important projects within their local community. In the capacity building program, when an organization is awarded a tax credit, CDFA in some cases will secure your first year of tax credits if you have no experience with securing tax credit donations. CDFA really wants to support you in participating in the tax credit program, and as an awardee or grantee, you will receive training and coaching to secure your tax credit donations. We work with you to identify businesses. They could be business owners or managers who serve on your board. A prospective donor could be a business you work with directly, or businesses who are in your community, such as a bank. We also share a list of past donors to the program, and I learned recently that, and I'm not surprised about this, that 95% of all tax credits awardees are successful in selling all of their tax credits every year. You and your organization can also benefit from selling tax credits. It helps your organization make connections to businesses who can become supporters and donors beyond the tax credit program, thus strengthening your own network. And you'll build your skills in fundraising and asking for donations. And finally, of course, the outcome is that your project gets funding. This is a visual of how the tax credits work. And this program is a cooperative partnership between the organization receiving tax credits, a donating business, and CDFA. So step one, just to really spell it out, step one is CDFA awards the tax credit. This year, those are based on state fiscal year 2026, which starts July 1, 2025. Step two, the organization that received the award, and that would be you if your organization is selected, your organization would secure a pledge or a promise from a New Hampshire business to donate funds to your project. Step three, the business sends its donation to CDFA on a chosen date, not directly to your project. Step four, funds for the project are available to be released to the project once fundraising has been completed in accordance with your contract requirements. So this is different, for example, from a typical grant award. Say you got a grant from a local foundation. Sometimes you'll get the award letter and the check in the same envelope. and but this is a different program than that. The funds are not available until all the businesses have actually paid on their pledge. And then step 5 is that CDFA provides the business with a tax credit letter documenting the donations so they can take the actual tax credit. It sounds complicated. It can be a little hard to understand, but I want to assure you that CDFA does most of the work. Once the nonprofit has secured the pledge, CDFA is then in charge of reminding businesses to pay the pledge and working with them on that payment. So a little bit about working with CDFA. CDFA is committed to supporting applicants and tax credit awardees throughout the entire process. CDFA works closely with potential applicants during the pre-application phase to understand their needs, align those needs with our technical assistance and financing resources, understand the other potential sources of support, as well as help strengthen the project's capacity for success by addressing any potential challenges early on. Here are ways that CDFA can support you during the application writing process. And the first is a pre-application meeting. These meetings give you the opportunity to meet with CDFA staff, share the details of your project, and access guidance specific to your application. We'll share instructions on how to request a pre-app meeting when we send follow-up materials in the coming days. There is a resource hub. It's an easy to navigate online platform that you can access through CDFA's website. Provides guidance on CDFA program objectives and eligibility, the application process, as well as how to successfully implement a project leveraging our resources. You'll also find those definitions that are important to your application writing there, such as community economic development, what do we mean by collaboration or community building, and who are the priority populations. All of these definitions are also in the application and program guides, and I'm just going to hold mine up. Most of the information, pretty much all the information that you need will be found in this application and program guide. And I know that Melissa will drop the link to that throughout this webinar. CDFA also offers ongoing technical assistance from concept initiation through project implementation, and this includes throughout the application writing process. We do offer grant writing assistance. This program is designed to help smaller organizations with limited capacity or experience to obtain the assistance of a professional grant writer who can help develop a strong and viable CDFA tax credit or community economic development capacity building program application. Applicants may apply for up to $2,500 to hire a grant writer should they need additional capacity, language access, or other technical support to successfully submit an application. These applications are available up until January 31st. It is a rolling deadline, so it's a first come, first serve. So the sooner you can apply for this, the better. It's a simple application. CDFA, through this program, has also collected a list of grant writers who are grant writing consultants who are interested in working with you should you receive the award. Additional information on how to apply for grant writing assistance can be found in the application and program guide, and I think Melissa is also going to drop a link. And to reiterate, please review the capacity building application and program guide available online now. It really does have all the information you need to consider and submit a grant application. Most of the material that we're presenting today is already in the application and program guide, and it's the first place to go if you have any questions. You'll see links to that in the chat throughout this webinar, and there will also be a link so you can download it. A link will be sent out in the follow-up email that Melissa mentioned earlier so that you can download it when you receive that email. I want to go a little bit into the timeline of this application and evaluation and award process. The application itself is available on New Hampshire CDFA's Grants Management System, or GMS. It's now open in GMS. You'll receive instructions on how to set up a pre-app meeting in the follow-up email. And if you set up a pre-app meeting, and we hope you do, please read the application and guidelines first. So those pre-app meetings are happening now through February 7th. After that, until the deadline, reach out as you have questions or need technical help with GMS. The application is due at 4 p.m. on March 7th. No exceptions for late or incomplete applications. CDFA conducts the application review from March to May, and this does include a follow-up virtual meeting for us to ask questions about your proposal and for you to provide any updates on the project. And then notifications of the award will go out the week of June 9th. The actual process of receiving an award, and then if you are an organization that is going to fundraise for the award is outlined here. CDFA will make these tax credits awards for state fiscal years 26 and 27. Usually awards are made in a 2-year timeline, and the maximum award you can apply for through the capacity building program is $75,000 a year, or a total of $150,000. As most organizations and tax credit donors operate on a calendar year from January to December, the fact that this program runs on a state fiscal year is an important distinction to take into account in terms of year timing. If the organization receives an award, this graph is helpful. It depicts a typical year managing a CDFA tax credit award. In this instance, we're showing you state fiscal year 26. Those awarded tax credits in June will likely have multi-year awards, so the fundraising cycle would continue into 2027, state fiscal year 27. In June, we will have a tax credit 101 training where we cover how to fundraise and manage your tax credit allocation. Information about your project and all current projects with credits available will be placed on the CDFA website. And CDFA has an electronic pledge portal, so donors may easily make pledges online. In July, your fundraising phase starts. At this point, you can collect pledges for tax credits, and businesses will choose a date or dates to make payment on state fiscal year 26 pledges up to June 30, 2026. On March 31st, 2026, all pledges for state fiscal year 26 tax credits are due. And as we just mentioned, the deadline for cash from state fiscal year 26 pledges must be received at CDFA by June 30th, 2026. If your project also receives state fiscal year 27 tax credits, you follow the same timeline. So one more thing, pledge payments come to CDFA, who then makes disbursements to the projects. Disbursements to your project are made under the terms outlined in your contract. But just to remember, if you receive a notification of a tax credit award in June, you receive funding when your tax credits are sold and businesses make the payment. There is more flexibility on this exact, what I just said, for capacity building awardees, because we understand that capacity building projects have often started, yesterday and need funding yesterday. So Molly will go into that a little bit more. So if you are awarded tax credits in June of 2025, business pledges are due on March 31st, 26, and donations are due by June 30th, 26. When donations are received, you can get the funding. Depending on the size of your award, your tax credit award will likely be broken into 2 tax credit years, 26 and 27. And there are multiple factors that go into the award decisions and what allocation is made each year. We determine the split based on amounts specified in your application and the availability of tax credits. Because we have a limited amount of tax credit dollars to allocate, and if we don't use them, we lose them as well. And therefore we lose the opportunity they represent. So we carefully manage how the tax credits are allocated. If your project is awarded tax credits, we will dive into this information in much more detail during our Tax Credit 101 workshop in June. I think we're going to pause here for questions.
Hi, Betsy. Thanks so much for that excellent overview of the tax credit program. And just to reiterate, all of this information will be shared with awardees again during a Tax Credit 101 should you receive an award. And we are here with you throughout that fundraising process to support you as well. We do have one question about a list of past donors being available and whether it's on our website and if they're broken down by region. So We do share a list of our donors. We are required by state law to report that in our annual report. So if you go to our website and look at our annual reports, you will find a breakdown of our donors. It's not broken down specifically by region, but it is available. And if you are considering fundraising for a tax credit, it's a great resource to start with. And I think we're probably going to see some additional questions come in as people process that information. So please drop those questions into the Q&A box. And I'm seeing a start of a question of whether or not our project is better for tax credits or capacity building. And that is an important distinction. And likely if your specific project would probably benefit from a pre-application meeting with staff to help make that determination. So just to say, if you have questions after leaving this workshop about whether capacity building or tax credits is right for you, that's definitely an important topic to cover in a pre-application meeting. But as Betsy mentioned, bricks and mortar and programming is typical in our tax credit program, and then focused on the organization is really where we're investing capacity building dollars. Is there anything you'd add to that, Betsy?
No, I thought that was a great overview. Thank you again. But my first answer was going to be pre-app meeting, have a conversation.
Great. So just seeing other questions come in. Do we solicit 2 rounds of pledges? How is it that we apply once but need to get 2 years of donations? Can the same donor company take their tax credit over 2 years?
Yes, is the answer. So to that last part of the question. So you receive an award, and I have a lot as a consultant working nonprofits and campaigns. I have a lot of experience managing tax credit campaigns. So say your organization receives an award, you understand that it is over 2 years. You can talk with your local business, local large manufacturing plant, for example. Most of the time, what sells them on the project is the impact that your project is bringing to the program, and then the bonus is that they get to write most of the donation off on their state tax credits. So you're talking to them about your project, and then you present them with the opportunity to make a pledge to purchase the credits in the first year and the second year of your award. And yes, the same business can purchase each year. They can make a pledge, July 1 for state fiscal year tax credits 26 and 27. So it's not necessarily 2 separate rounds. Hopefully you can do it all in one campaign in a short period of time.
Absolutely. So those are the questions that we have so far. So at that point, I think we'll bring Molly on to dive into the capacity building application.
Thanks, Melissa, and thank you, Betsy, for that really clear explanation. So nice to be with all of you today. I'm going to share some more details about what we're looking for in capacity building, and then go through the various components of the capacity building application with you. As Melissa said, continue to put your questions in the Q&A and we will address those. And I think we can get going. Thank you. Before I share the actual application and talk deeper about capacity building, wanted to share an important concept that we are always looking at when we're reviewing applications, and that's readiness. If you were in either one of our webinars last week, and we had a previous webinar, we dived deep into this concept of readiness. So please look at our resources for that. But just a short overview today. And wanted to share that the principal objective of the capacity building program is to support organizations that are building their capacity to advance community economic development and infrastructure projects, primarily that are supporting priority populations and priority communities. And so when we're looking at an application, we have a staff team and outside experts that will review and read your application. We're looking to ensure that you're ready for a tax credit allocation. We like to see that your proposal, your project, the capacity that you're building has some community support or community partners, or that you've talked with advisors in your community that helps bring you to the place to describe what you need in terms of capacity. We will ask you to demonstrate that there's a proven need for the proposal that you're bringing forward. We also look at your organizational capacity. So while this is a capacity building program, we know that you need a certain amount of capacity to participate in the tax credit program. I'll share a little more in detail about that going forward. And so we just want to be able to know that you can carry forward the work you're doing and the tax credit sale component of the program. We hope that you have networks in the business community. What I'll tell you is when we're in pre-application meetings or when I'm working with folks across the state, often new and emerging organizations will indicate that they're not sure they have networks in the business community. And I assure you that you have some of that. If you've got a board of directors, if you have advisors, you certainly have community members and neighbors and businesses that you're aware of. And so through our Tax Credit 101 training, we help you build that list of your network. And then finally, we're always looking to leadership. Many good ideas that we hear about are not quite ready to move forward in a programmatic way, or don't have full leadership to do that, or possibly support from partner organizations or a board. That's okay. Come and talk to us. We often will have a pre-application meeting with a potential applicant 1 year and suggest things they may do to be better ready for application. They do that work over the year and come in and actually apply in the next year. So if you're not quite ready or you have questions about that, please schedule a pre-application meeting. Very happy to talk through that with you. In our application evaluation, we of course are looking for high public benefit and public purpose. So in capacity building, sometimes that's a bit of a challenge because we're trying to build the organization. It's a bit inward looking, but we're really encouraging you to think about what does it mean for the community that you serve if you build your capacity. So we're going to ask about what is the benefit? What is the purpose for you building your capacity? We're also going to look for what I would call medium to low medium readiness. What we want to ensure is that, as I said, you're ready to be a partner in the tax credit program and that you're ready to move your work forward. Some great ideas come to us as ideas and they're not quite ready. They don't quite have the capacity to move into that programmatic stage. And so we'll be taking a look at that. Again, can talk to you about that in a pre-application meeting. We occasionally will fund something that has high readiness and high public benefit. And that's primarily because that's an organization that's really stretching into some new work that they have no capacity for because they see an emerging or critical need to address, and it's related to their mission. And I'll talk a little bit more about that and give some examples in a few slides on that. So this is our application evaluation. This is in the application guide if you want to take a look at that. So here's the application outline. We have 6 sections to this application. It is primarily a narrative application, so you will be doing some writing. And under section 3, the narrative, there's several sections, and I will walk through those with you today. I want to reiterate what Betsy shared earlier in that we have support for grant writing and urge you to take a look at that today or pretty quickly. While that application is open until the end of January, we have limited funds, although we have funds available right now. It's on a rolling basis. And so we look at your application pretty quickly. And you will need time to secure your consultant to do grant writing. So as I go through this and you feel like this is something you're just not capable of doing, or you need some support, please consider the grant writing assistance. I will also say that the best applications, and you're ready for grant writing, if you've got a really clear explanation of what your problem or challenges that you're working on, and a really clear vision for what you're trying to address or what capacity you'd like to build to address a community economic issue. So also say that if you've put the time and the effort into and the experience into bringing your project together, you're probably ready to write your application. So I think I'll go forward and we'll go through each of the sections. The first two sections are basic information. We're starting with the basics. Of course, we want to know about your organization in terms of name and contact address. We'll also be looking for project information. Project title is important. If you are funded, this is the title we carry forward in our public sharing of the projects, and you'll carry forward in your fundraising. So give some thought to how you want to title the work that you're doing. As we've shared, your project can be up to 2 years. So you can request funding for 1 year or for 2 years. Typically, most of our applicants are requesting 2 years of funding. There's a maximum of $75,000 per year and $150,000 over 2 years. And our system, when you're in there and in the application process, will calculate the required administrative fee to CDFA, and so that easily walks you through those steps. Also remember that capacity building, this program is a one-time infusion to move your organization forward or strengthen your organization. This is not permanent funding for a project that you're developing, but that's really important. We're going to want to know after our 2 years of funding whether you're able to carry on with the work that you're doing. Here are the sections in the narrative section. Give you a second to take a look at those. And also let you know that each section is 2,000 characters, and characters are different than words. That translates to 300, 350 words. So it's about 2 or 3 short paragraphs for each section. And in this whole narrative section, what you're doing is telling your story. You're going to tell us who you are, what mission you're working on, how you've come together with other partners, what problem it is that you're working on, and what solution that you're aiming for, and the impact you'll have. And what's buried in there through all of that is what capacity you need and how that's going to help you move forward. So I will go through each section of the narrative here. The first is the summary of the proposal. I think Betsy gave good advice on our workshop last week in that you should write this last. This is when you've summed it all up, when you have all the pieces put together and you are going to state in a very clear way what it is you're trying to do and what the impact would be. Longer is not always better. You do not have to take up all the characters or words that we offer you. I think the best applications that we see are written in a simple, clear way where we know that you have fully researched and understood and connected in community, and therefore have a good proposal before us. So let's talk a little bit about the organizational capacity and what capacity means. Just as a refresher, in the blue box, we really look at capacity as strengthening the skills, abilities, and processes of an organization. If you're looking for more information or deeper information on our thoughts on capacity, please check out our recent webinars where we dive a little deeper on capacity. But we're going to be asking you to think about and share with us the organizational capacity you need to build. I will say, having been in the nonprofit sector throughout my career, most, if not all nonprofits say we all need capacity and we all need more staff. And I'm going to challenge you to go just beyond that to tell us whether new staff or a consultant might be something that you're looking for as you move forward. We also can support strategic plans, planning process, community engagement process. We have quite a few applicants that do bring in consultants to work through their growing needs, especially if you're a new organization or in early stages of development. Just sharing the capacity building trends we've seen in this program over the past several years. And we have those organized and they match up with the different stages of nonprofit development. So the majority of capacity building applications that we support are for organizations or collaborations of new and early stage. So these are groups of people who are coming together to work on something for a first time. Might be a new organization working on with a priority population or a new or emerging issue in the state. So we recognize that you are in the very early stages of your hopefully long successful organization. And so we do require, and I'll go through this in a minute, a number of important documentation about where you are as an organization. And also just to note that we will take applications from organizations or collaborations that have a fiscal sponsor and are not yet a 501c3. And in some cases, you may never plan to go forward as a 501c3, but you do need a fiscal sponsor because we need an organization that we can allocate the funding to. And then we have good guidance. Melissa will share this in the chat. We have good guidance in our resource hub on how to find a fiscal sponsor and what the important components of a fiscal sponsor are. In the new and early stages of organizational development, we are often funding organizations that are moving from all volunteer to a first staff member. This is a very specific and important time in the growth of a nonprofit organization, and finding, having consulting expertise to help you as maybe the visionary leader and your board move through this process is really important. We do support organizations that are in the growth stage or who have been sustainable for quite some time. And those organizations, as I said, are looking to address something that is really a little out of their wheelhouse or outside of their mission, but related to their mission. And they have no capacity to take on something that's different, but that could impact them and the work they do positively. So we will take an application from a long-time existing organization. Just to reiterate, most of the applications we fund are new and early stage organizations. And then finally, we're really interested in efforts and organizations that are going to lead to investment in capital projects, infrastructure, bricks and mortar projects that are going to really impact and bring vibrancy and investment to our communities, our neighborhoods, our cities, our downtowns, et cetera. Next, under the narrative, we're going to ask you to tell us the challenge that you're working on and the specific problem that you would like to address. And we'd ask you to tell your story here and use data. Nate will share a little bit more with you on how you can access the data from CDFA and other data resources. We want you to be very specific here. And also keep in mind, I find in reading a lot of these applications, applicants share quite a bit about the challenge and less about the solution that they're proposing. So make sure in all these narrative pieces that you have a balance in what you're sharing with us. And I think it's really helpful if you think about this both as telling your story and as the data that you want to use. You often have this information because you've been out talking about the topics that you're working on in your community, or you've had other grants or whatnot. And so I encourage you to use information you've had in the past as well. Next is we ask you to identify the priority that you're interested in our program. Here are our 4 priorities for the past couple of years in our program. And it's really important, the proposals that do well in our funding round are proposals that are addressing one or more of these. We are very interested in projects and programs and capacity that is collaborative. Are you working with other organizations or other coalitions or groups of folks in your community? So tell us who else is on the work that you're doing. This can be locally, regionally, or statewide, but we'd like to know that you are working in a collaborative nature. Second, we're looking for place-based strategies that support priority populations, revitalize communities and economies. So projects and efforts and organizations that are building capacity to do revitalization in their neighborhood, in their town, in their city, on their main street. We're always looking for innovative models of governance, programming, initiatives, and organizations. Come and talk to us in a pre-application meeting. We don't have all the answers on what's innovative. Many of you do because you're out working in community. And I would say one of the things I love about this program is we do have the flexibility to fund something that is new and different and that we want to try in community. We're really interested if a potential innovative application can be replicated in other parts of the state or in other regions so that we can learn from each other. So we will consider that when we look at innovation. And then finally, community engagement. Community engagement is important to all pieces of community economic development, and they're important to your organization. And so we are funding applications that are looking to engage community prior to some type of reinvestment or redevelopment. You may find that you as an organization are working on housing or Main Street work, and you're unsure how your community feels about that or what their priorities are or how they might positively impact your work, and we can fund those type of efforts. Also, just want to share here that while we do look at these 4 priorities very seriously, we're also always looking at the populations that you're serving and the places that you're serving. And as was mentioned earlier, we have a list of priority populations in the application and guide. I ask you to take a look at those and share with us what populations you are working with. And what places we're looking to better support places that are in high need with low investment. We will be asking you in the narrative to tell us about the long-term value and impact of what you're proposing. So we're interested to know how building your capacity will impact those that you serve. So these are the actual individuals that you're serving in community. How does building your capacity strengthen and address issues that your community is facing? Please tell us how this impacts your community. Is there any physical impact? Will it create investment or vibrancy in your community by virtue of the work that you're doing? Please also tell us how this impacts your organization. Building this capacity over the next 1 or 2 years, what do you expect your organization will feel the impact, not only on this, but organization-wide? Where are you going after these 2 years? And then finally, give some thought to how you will measure the success of building your capacity. And that also leads us to the last section in the narrative, which is the growth and success. So how do you know if you're successful in what you're proposing? What looks different? This is where I'd ask you to be very forward-thinking about what you're really trying to accomplish and trying to achieve, whether it's for your organization, your staff, your board, your community, and the people that you serve. It's also okay in these sections to be honest about things that you're unsure of, particularly on impact. We know that impact is hard. It's hard to quantify to us, especially when it's a new idea that you're trying. We're really interested in projects where you're willing to learn from what you're doing and you're willing to share those learnings with others. So give some consideration to how building your capacity will help you learn and grow as an organization. That's it for the narrative section. Next, there's a section on budget and fundraising. This is where we'll ask you for a project budget, and our grants management system will prompt you and give you an opportunity to let us know whether you're looking for funding that covers staff, training, supplies, consultants, professional fees, traveling, marketing, etc. And so I think the budget template gives you an idea to think through all of those things. There may be other capacity items that you're asking for, and you'll have an opportunity to include those in your project budget. If you have funds from other sources for this work that you're doing on this project, please share those with us. We're happy to know that we're part of a larger funding stack for the work that you're doing. Under fundraising, this goes back to the readiness. We want to ensure that you are ready to do the fundraising and the tax credit program. And so we do ask you to share your experience in fundraising. And it is okay to say we've never done any fundraising, we're brand new, or maybe we have a membership component, or we've written a few grants, but we do not have an endowment program. Just let us know where you are in fundraising, because that helps us determine your readiness. You can also share with us if you've had challenges in accessing resources. That's part of your story of where you are as a developing organization, and we're happy to know that. And whether you have other opportunities or other funding that you're looking at. And then finally, if you have potential business donors already, and we have quite a few applications that come in with potential donor letters. So that might be a business that you reach out to, you share your proposal idea, they're very interested, and they can write a letter saying they would be interested in considering tax credits. And happy to have that as part of your application. You can also share with us where you are in terms of building a network with business contacts for that readiness piece of fundraising. Finally, of course, we're going to ask for some attachments. Under organizational documents, you'll see a list here also spelled out both in the grants management system and in the application and guide. All of these documents, articles of incorporation, bylaws, your list of board of directors with their affiliations, your organizational chart, if you have one, proof of good standing with the state. These are base documents for all nonprofits. And so if you have submitted other applications to us or other funders, you'd likely pull these documents together. I always encourage organizations to keep these in one place and be ready to share these when you're doing your grant writing. If you are a new organization, you might be waiting on your IRS determination letter and you have a fiscal sponsor. You may be a one part-time staff person and you're laughing because of course you don't have an organizational chart quite yet. That's fine too. We recognize in this program that many of you are really just starting in on the road to developing your organization. So please share with us the documents that you have. I'll also say another thing about the grant writing process, and I know there were quite a few pieces to the narrative. As we always say, do not start writing this the day before. We encourage you to start much earlier and encourage you to do your writing in a Word document and then copy it into our system. There's some days, if you're like me, you're just not ready to write something and put that kind of mindset to writing. And those are the days where I say, pull together the organizational documents and get ready to do your attachments. We will ask for financial statements if you have those. We're very interested to see what your operating budget looks like. Again, if you're new, an operating budget might be brand new to you. Just give us some sense of what funding you have or what funding is coming in and where you're allocating those funds. We can answer questions about this in the pre-application meeting. And then you may have an audited financial statement. Most of our capacity building applications do not. We're happy to take a financial review statement if you have that. And we're also happy to take a look if you would share your IRS 990 form. So don't be discouraged or intimidated if you don't have all of these pieces together because you're a new initiative. We encourage you to share what you have with us and recognize where you are in your development. And then finally, we will ask you to certify and do a certification. We want to make sure that your board or the municipal leaders that you may be reporting to are aware of this work and supportive of this work. And so there is a certification form that must be completed by the executive director or the CEO or by an officer of the board. When you go in our grants management system, you can download this form and you print it out, scan it, and have that signature done and then upload that back up to us. We require all organizations to submit this certification from an authorized official. And this confirms that all your statements in your application are true and accurate, and that the application is being submitted with the full knowledge of your board of directors. We also are certifying that your organization follows the New Hampshire conflict of interest laws is defined by RSA 719 and RSA 292-6A. There's information on our grant management system about this. And then finally, we want to acknowledge that all the information and documents that were created, accepted, and obtained on behalf of CDFA are subject to disclosure under RSA 91A, the right to know law in New Hampshire. So that is the certification process. I think Betsy also often gives good guidance that you might also start this first when you're pulling your documentation together. It may take you a little time to download this and then have the appropriate person sign this and ensure that you meet all the criteria on the certification. So that's it for the certification and the financial sections. I think I want to pause here, knowing that we've shared a lot of information with you, and check in with you, Melissa, and see what questions we might have.
Molly. So we have kind of a remaining question from the fundraising piece of the presentation, just clarifying that a business donor can choose to pledge for the first year or the second year. And I'd say, Betsy, the answer is one or the other or both. So it's really up to them and their understanding of what their tax liability is or being able to pledge for that. Would you add anything there, Betsy?
No, that's exactly right. Thanks.
And Melissa, if I can add to something that came up earlier, in terms of the capacity building program, because it is a little different, we do recognize that for those looking to build capacity, it can be a heavy lift to sell the first year of the tax credits. And so CDFA does consider that in our allocation process. And if you're an organization with no experience selling tax credits, CDFA may sell your first year for you. We will work with you through that year to get you ready to sell the second year of tax credits.
Excellent, thank you. So another question is about eligible expenses and uses of the funds. The question asked that funding is on a reimbursement basis, yet the application says expenses already incurred are disallowed. Could you please explain?
Yes. And maybe we should clarify that in the application and guide, Melissa, because I think I see how the writer of this question is reading this. So it is on a reimbursement basis from the time that you are awarded the allocation. So in the first year, it would be July 2025 is when you're in the tax credit program. And so expenses in that, what I call that fall winter season of 25 until you're allocated your funds in spring of 26 can be reimbursed. We cannot reimburse you for anything prior to your award date in 2025. So if you have expenses from 6 months ago or a year ago, we can't do that kind of reimbursement. And Melissa, please add if there's something I've missed on that answer.
No, I think that's accurate. And I think that it is also a piece of the consideration of the need for capacity building, right? So if you're already able to be supporting the activities required for the capacity building project, it might conflict with your demonstrated need, right? So is that accurate, Molly? Just
Yes.
considering, yeah, if your organization can carry the cost, you're not demonstrating a specific need for the resources for capacity building.
Right, and I will, I think I'm happy to share with you in the last couple of years in this program, of course, as an applicant, we all think it's urgent what you're doing. What we find is we notify you of your award in June, we do some training with you in July, it's the summer months, and then fall starts, and so the urgency in terms of the capacity that you need immediately often isn't there September, October. Like what we're finding is applicants can wait till that March, April, May of the following year in terms of moving forward in the project, especially because if you're an organization or a collaboration that's coming together doing something new, you're often not doing it full time. And you often have a lot of work to do to pull your project and program together. And so I think what we're seeing is the time frame actually does work for folks. There are some occasions where we could consider an early release of funds that we don't typically do it, but we can, and that's on a case-by-case basis. And also to say that when you are awarded a capacity building award with us, we stay close to you in that process. We want you to be successful. We want to know what you're doing. So Kirsten Barton is the program manager and myself, and we'll stay in communication about that.
Well, I'd say building on that is this next question, is if to say a little bit more about how the funds are dispersed. Did I just hear that we carry expenses until 2026, or do we invoice monthly or similar?
I would say every project is different, so there's not a standard answer. Happy to talk about this in the pre-application meeting. Some projects are carrying expenses from July into those spring months, and then they put in what we call a claim with us, and we reimburse it once those donations are in. I'd say the majority of them are just not working that way. The majority of people, their work is actually starting closer to December or January after they've been allocated. And so we do reimburse. You can put a reimbursement in on a regular monthly basis with us, and we'll take care of that reimbursement.
Great. So a question about whether an organization can apply for both tax credit and capacity building, or does it have to be one or the other?
Really good question. I think in our pre-application meetings, we help figure out which program you're best suited for. We rarely, if ever, have had someone at the same time apply for both programs, because if you're working on a capital project, infrastructure, bricks and mortar project, and within there you need to build some capacity, we clearly see that as the tax credit program. If you're just building capacity, we see that as the capacity building program. So it's highly unlikely that you'd apply for both at the same time. I will tell you, we have applicants who've come in for the tax credit program because they want to improve their facility and the programs that they're offering. And then they come back for capacity building. I'm thinking of one in particular in Keene who came back after we helped support with tax credit allocation their building and found that they could do a lot more programming, and their community was asking for that, and they needed to figure out how to build capacity to do that. So they came back to the capacity building program. We also are very interested in helping build capacity of organizations through tax credits. Then that then they come back to us for the bricks and mortar or the infrastructure investment. So it's less likely you'll come in at the same time, but one after the other.
Excellent. And in some senses, you don't really want to be competing with yourself in both programs, right? Because your capacity to actually fundraise for both at the same time might also be a consideration.
Exactly.
If awarded grant writing assistance, is there a recommended list or additional help to select a grant writer?
We do have a list of grant writers we share. We are not endorsing them. They're grant writers that we're aware of or that we know across the state. And so we're happy to share that list with you.
And they've proactively opted into supporting organizations that apply for CDFA's grant writing assistance. So they're ready for you when you reach out. If awarded, what are the typical reporting requirements during the grant period? Any pre-audit reports required? And I'm not sure we want to dive too deeply in this. There is an implementation section on the capacity building portion of our resource hub that talks about reporting requirements. But Molly, I don't know if you want to touch on anything specific here.
I would say I don't think these are heavy reporting requirements. Having done a lot of grants throughout my career, we do require a monthly short update on what's going on, what's happening, how are things moving forward, and we require a monthly update on your fundraising activities, and that's part of the tax credit 101 training, and we'll share our forms for doing that.
Excellent. So that's it for questions for now. And just to say, please continue to add them into the Q&A box. If we don't pause, we're about 30 minutes away from 11:30 where we're looking to wrap up by. So we will answer any other lingering questions towards the end of the presentation as well. So if we don't get to yours in the next few slides, please know that we'll also stick around to answer some of those questions at the end. And we're transitioning this over to Nate to talk through some data resources that we have to offer you and support your application.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Molly. So what we're going to dive into next is talking about why data matters in our grant applications, and not just in our grant applications, but overall. And so backing up your application with data is a great way to demonstrate need. And so by using data to clearly articulate the issue your project addresses and why it matters to the community, you can also show alignment. So by connecting your project goals directly to CDFA's funding priorities, emphasizing how your project supports our mission, you can do this with data. And lastly, you can help build credibility. So using data highlights your organization's understanding of the issue and commitment to addressing community needs effectively. That's why data matters. Including diverse types of data strengthens your application. And so some examples of types of data you might explore are community needs data. So utilizing local data to highlight the community challenges your project will address, program impact data, showcasing results from past or similar projects to demonstrate the potential outcomes of your initiatives, benchmarks and comparisons, referencing state or national data to put your project's goals in context and show how they align with broader trends, and just like trends in general. So including historical data to demonstrate how the issue has evolved or persisted over time helps reinforce the urgency for funding. In terms of data, the source of the data can be really important. And so sources of reliable data might include national level sources. So things like the Census Bureau or the CDC or the Department of Education, they all provide credible, publicly accessible data that you can use. There are also local sources. A cool one that Molly loves is the New Hampshire community profiles to check out, but also municipal reports or community surveys offer valuable region-specific insights. You could also pull from academic research, so that could be something like peer-reviewed studies or university-led research to add depth and reliability to your application. And then also pulling data from your organization itself. So that's things like internal data, like evaluation reports and case studies to highlight success that you all have had in the past. Um, in general, though, data just isn't just about the numbers. It's really important to build a compelling and evidence-based story that's resonating with the CDFA's mission. Um, and so make sure you're using data to strategically highlight your project's value and demonstrate measurable outcomes that align with the CDFA's priorities. So kind of as we've seen here, incorporating data into your application not only strengthens your case, but it also demonstrates alignment. And so that might make you wonder where to start with all of the data we kind of looked at here. And so CDFA has a few tools that are great starting places for organizations that might be new to leveraging data. And so one of those tools in particular is the community progress indicators. And since 2019, the CDFA has partnered with the New Hampshire Fiscal Policy Institute to identify data and information that quantifies socioeconomic and community strengths, issues, and challenges. And the result of this collaboration is the Community Progress Indicators and the Core Data Index, which are a curated set of reliable and up-to-date data that can be used to support your grant applications. The first set of indicators was released by the CDFA in January of 2020, and we work annually with the Fiscal Policy Institute to update our data. Updated community progress indicators are posted on our website each December for use in the following calendar year. And so the complete data set for the 2025 calendar year is now available and ready for you to use as you put together your application. These indicators can help you identify community needs, benchmark your project against broader trends, and align your application with CDFA's funding priorities. An example of three of these indicators and their differences across New Hampshire communities and counties are visualized above. And so that's just an example of how different communities have different needs, different strengths, and different challenges. And so we're really interested in you sort of highlighting how your project aligns with the strengths and the challenges in your community. So now that we've discussed what community progress indicators are and how data in general can strengthen your application, I want to walk through how to access these resources. We've organized a series of tools to help you along the way, and that starts on the CDFA data page. This data page serves as your gateway to the data resources that we create. So that's link number 1 on this slide. And from that site, the first resource in particular I want to draw your attention to is the Community Progress Indicator Summary Table. So this table is a great place to start. It provides a comprehensive list of the 13 indicators that we at the CDFA track, and it helps you quickly identify indicators that might be relevant to the work that your organization does. Once you've identified particular indicators that might be of interest to your organization, the next step is to consult the Community Progress Indicators Data Dictionary. And so that's link number 3 on this slide. This resource gives you a detailed description of each indicator and considerations for its use, as well as the source of the data. So it helps ensure that you have the context you need to effectively make meaning of a particular indicator. And then after you've found a few indicators and reviewed them in the data dictionary, you can actually look at the underlying data itself, and you'd find that in link 4 in this slide. So when you look at the actual data under 2025 Community Progress Indicators, you'll be able to see the most recent data that the CDFA has available for each indicator, and it's organized alphabetically by county and then municipality. And so that's a useful way for you to not only see your own data, but then to start looking at municipalities and counties that neighbor you and understand your data in context of the greater New Hampshire community. Finally, if you're interested in trends or historical changes, the last link on this slide, 2021 through 2025 Community Progress Indicators, is your go-to resource. So that's going to allow you to explore how the data has evolved over time, and that can help you add depth and context to your application. So next, we have we need to integrate this data specifically into our application. And the place where it's going to integrate the best is in the narrative sections of the application. And so an example that you'll find in the narrative, you will be asked, what specific problem or community economic challenge does your organization and or work address? And so that's a great question where, although it doesn't directly ask for you to incorporate data, including data from the community progress indicators will help you demonstrate the specific problem that your project addresses and will significantly enhance your response. Some questions that you might ask yourself to help with this process of translating the data that you see into your narrative are listed on this slide. And so I encourage you to kind of come back to this slide as a starting place. Again, if you're feeling overwhelmed about the different places you could take all of the data available to you and how to incorporate them into your application. But in either case, effectively using data isn't just about adding numbers. It's about building a clear and compelling narrative that data supports. If you have any questions about the data that the CDFA has hosted on its website, please feel free to reach out to me at Nadelson and Olson at nhcdfa.org. And I'm happy to kind of talk you through our resources if there's confusion. So that's our data intro.
Nate, I'm not seeing any questions on data at this time, so let's jump into the grants management system, and then we'll wrap up with some next steps.
Sounds good. Thank you, Melissa. So next up, in terms of very specific steps, are if you are applying to any of the CDFA's programs, not just the tax credit program, you're going to need a username in our grants management system and a password. Our grants management system, or GMS for short, is our platform for managing the full life cycle of grants. So that's all the way from grant application through closeout. And so anyone who needs access to your grant or needs access to your application needs to create a user profile in GMS. And this could include people like a grant writer or an authorized official in your application, or just the primary point of contact for your grant. For our grants management system, it's super important that each user have a unique login to the system. That helps keep our system secure. And so we don't want to see users sharing accounts or passwords. Additionally, users should only have a single GMS account. So your account represents you as an individual. If you're part of multiple organizations, you shouldn't have one account for one organization and another account for another. There are organizations in GMS and people in GMS. And so your account is just creating you as a person. And that person can be related to many different organizations in GMS. So make sure you only have one account. If you have a GMS account already, perhaps you've applied to a prior funding round or some other CDFA program, you'll use that same account to apply to this program. But for new users, the first step is to register at our grants GMS website. And so that's on the screen. And we've also created a detailed step-by-step registration guide to help you through the process if needed. You'll find that linked on the GMS page of the resource website and directly here on this slide. Please note that new user registration is reviewed and approved by CDFA staff, and so that can sometimes take 2 business days. It's not an automatic approval. For existing users, simply log in with your current account credentials. And if you encounter any issues accessing your account, you can use our password recovery video to recover your password and username. And if you're still running into issues or have any questions about registration, you'll be able to reach out to, oh, this email is wrong. Priscilla's out right now, but Melanie is going to be your point of contact at the moment. So we'll correct that before we send these slides out. That's grants management system. Now that we've reviewed how to get an account in GMS, we're going to walk through the process of starting a new application. Whether you're applying for tax credits again or any other funding opportunities, this step-by-step guide is going to apply across the board. So first, you're going to log into grants management system with that new username and password that you've created. Once you're logged in, you're going to navigate to the funding opportunity section, and that's on the left-hand navigation menu. And that's going to provide a list of all currently available funding opportunities that the CDFA is offering at the moment. For this particular application, you're going to be selecting the Community Economic Development Capacity Building funding opportunity, and that is part of the tax credit program. So just pay attention to those columns. One column is going to list the program as a whole, and another is going to list the particular application. So it's going to say tax credit and then Community Economic Development Capacity Building Program. And the ID number for that is 34981. So that's going to ensure that you're on the right application. This application is one of multiple, so just make sure you're grabbing the right one. Once you've selected the appropriate application, you're gonna, in the top right-hand corner, there's gonna be a green Start New Application button, and that's gonna let you begin the process. If you're unsure about any step that we've listed, there's also links to a detailed guide to provide additional support. And if those guides aren't getting you what you need, you can reach out to me and I can provide sort of technical support in terms of navigating our systems. That's getting registered for GMS. If you need, if a visual guide is helpful, this slide is here just to kind of show you visually the 4 steps to get to that Start New Application button. Cool. Now that we've covered how to start a new application, I want to cover some quick tips and best practices to help you navigate grants management system. One, make sure you're using the resources that are available. So the GMS section of CDFA's resource website has detailed guides that walk you through various processes. Be sure to review those guides if you have initial questions or need clarification. If those guides aren't giving you what you need, then feel free to reach out to me. And that feedback is helpful because then I can sort of build out the guides to more clearly meet people's needs. After using the resources available, make sure you're drafting all of your responses outside of the system. We highly recommend you use a word processor like Microsoft Word or a Google Doc, and just copy your narrative responses into GMS. There are 2 reasons that I recommend doing this, among others. One is every once in a while, if you've been sitting in GMS for a really long time drafting something, you might lose internet connection or it just might not save correctly. And so by copy pasting it, you know that you're always going to have a copy, even if GMS doesn't save it correctly immediately. And then 2, GMS has character limits. And so it's really important to draft in a Word document and copy paste into GMS because we don't want to see you get your narratives cut off unintentionally. So drafting outside is going to make sure you're clearly able to see your character counts before and after you've put them into our system. Make sure you're starting early and saving often. There's only one of me and there are many of you. And so if you're running into technical issues a few hours before the application is due, it can be pretty busy for me the last few hours as people are racing to submit applications. It's a lot calmer and easier to get support from me if you're communicating well in advance of the application deadline in terms of technical issues. Yeah, so any questions about grants management system? If they're technical issues, they can come to me. That's Nate Olson. And for registration issues, right now you're going to be reaching out to Melanie. Any GMS questions?
Not seeing any at this time, but like I said, please, as you think about them, drop those questions into the Q&A box. We have a couple more slides about next steps, but we'll be sure to stick around and answer any lingering questions that you all might have.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Melissa. I'm going to take us into next steps now. Your very first next step, if you're wondering how to start, what the first step is to register in GMS. And Nate just went through a nice comprehensive review of how to do that, and you will have access to these slides. The next one is to consider grant writing support. These are, as Molly said, a first come, first serve. We have a limited number of funds. The last date we could consider a grant writing assistance application is January 31st, but don't wait till then. And the whole point of this grant writing program is to support organizations with limited grant writing experience or capacity, up to $2,500 per award. No match is required from the applicant, and CDFA does provide a list of consultants that have said they're ready to step in if an applicant comes to them, or you can work with your own consultant. The third thing is to schedule a pre-app meeting with CDFA staff. Again, we cannot emphasize this enough. And then these webinars and links to everything that Melissa has dropped in the chats are also available online and in the follow-up email that Melissa will send. Okay, so 2025 key dates. These are important dates for you to keep in mind as you work through this process. The online application is available now, both online on the website, so you can download a copy and print it out if you want, as I have. You can also start your application in GMS. All of the follow-up information will be emailed out, and that will include a link to schedule your pre-app meeting. So those pre-app meetings, again, has started yesterday, and we'll do those through February 7th. Of course, if you're planning, to be out of the office for whatever reason until February 10th, of course, we'll work with you to schedule something, but we really try and keep those condensed to this time frame so that you have time to write your application. The application deadline is March 7th, 2024 by 4 p.m. Again, late submissions or incomplete applications are not accepted. And then notification of the award is the week of June 9th, 2025. Everybody will receive notification that week. All award recipients are invited to attend an event announcing the awarded projects the following week, and we'll have that the week of June 16th in Concord. And then a tax credit 101 workshop. This is a virtual workshop on June 25th from 10 a.m. to noon. We say this is mandatory. It's really, really important that somebody from your organization attend that because it informs awardees about program logistics, resources, and lots of information about crafting a successful tax credit fundraising campaign. To reiterate, pre-app meetings are just so helpful. If you have a project that you think would be a good fit for the tax credit or capacity building programs, if you're trying to figure out which program is best for your project, we really urge you to consider scheduling a pre-app meeting. They're a great opportunity for us to learn more about your project, answer any questions you might have that are very specific to your program or application, and then we can provide guidance for you that's specific to your project. So again, the link to sign up for that will be in the follow-up email that Melissa sends. And also, if you have experience scheduling an appointment, just let us know. We'll work with you, but hopefully it can work within the time that is set aside. And that is it. I think I've brought us home, and we can open it up for any questions, if any.
Thanks, Betsy. And I did actually just share that link to scheduling pre-app meetings in the chat, as well as some step-by-step instructions, as there's multiple options for organizations. So if you're considering just specifically a capacity building tax credit, you're going to want to select that option to pair you with the appropriate staff member. If you're not sure or considering both a tax credit and capacity building tax credit, you can select that option to explore both those options. And if you're really looking more specifically to a tax credit or bricks and mortar project, please select the tax credit option when you're scheduling, again, so that we can pair people with the appropriate staff member.
Great. Yes, click on that link.
I'm not seeing any additional questions come through at this time. We are right about at that 11:30 mark. And as we've mentioned, we're here to answer questions during those pre-app meetings, and we'll be following up with all relevant links to these materials, to the recording, and to the PowerPoint slides. So hopefully you have everything in one place as you consider advancing an application to the capacity building program. And with that, if there aren't any other questions, I'll close us out for the morning.